everyone. I am Caitlin Engel. I'm a registered dietitian and I am the program development director here at NKF. I'm so happy to be doing another Facebook Live with you all. Today I'm joined by a couple of panelists. Dr. Sumeska Thavaraja is a nephrologist and an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. Curtis Warfield is a kidney transplant recipient. And Carrie Maxwell is someone living with stage 4 chronic kidney disease. Thank you all for joining us today to discuss COVID-19 vaccines and their impact on the kidney community. Dr. Thavaraja, you deal with kidney patients all day long. Is there any specific information regarding the COVID-19 vaccine that you feel people with kidney disease should be aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about the vaccines. What we do know about COVID infections are they do tend to affect individuals with advanced kidney disease and transplant patients a little more severely. And so our patients who have kidney disease are at higher risk. And so we are advocating for all of our kidney patients to receive the vaccine as a way of protecting themselves and hopefully preventing hospitalization and a more serious complications from COVID-19. There's no guarantee that it'll be 100% protection to prevent the infection completely, but it allows them a significant improvement in terms of their course if they do get the COVID-19 infection. There are currently two vaccines on the market. There's the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. They're both mRNA vaccines, and either one will provide a significant amount of protection. Right now, the studies show greater than 90% protection after the second doses. Now, these studies did not include transplant patients, so we're only getting that information slowly now. There is a current registry in place, and we are collecting data about individuals who have solid organ transplants and who have received the vaccine. There's initial results that have come out that just was released in Transplantation, and of 189 individuals who have solid organ transplants who have received either the Moderna vaccine or the Pfizer vaccine and have not had any significant complications compared to the general population without kidney disease or transplantation. So both of these vaccines are a series of 2 injections. The Pfizer vaccine is separated by 21 days. The Moderna vaccine is separated by 28 days. A lot of people will ask me, do I even need to get the second dose? You really do need to get that second dose of either of the vaccines because that's what gives you the greatest amount of protection. And it really does take several weeks after receiving the vaccine before you get that complete protection. So just because you've received the first dose, you can't assume that you have that level of protection. So we still need to be vigilant in terms of washing your hands, masking, social distancing, and it's really only after that second dose. But it's not a replacement for eliminating these other things. Now, another question people often ask me is are these vaccines safe? Because they seem to have been turned around rather quickly. One thing to keep in mind is that the technology is different, and that's really where the speed of developing these vaccines has come out of. But the safety standards and the safety requirements have not been skimped upon. So we do feel that both of these vaccines are safe for use. So what does mRNA mean? You can kind of think of it as sort of a messenger service. It's kind of like your UPS, Amazon delivery service. It's going to give you your body the blueprint to make a protein that your body will then recognize as not part of your own body, and it will generate antibodies to it. The mRNA is not going to change your own DNA structure. It doesn't enter the cells, the nucleus of the cells, so it's not going to cause any other genetic changes or any of the concerns that people have had. Once the body receives that message and that blueprint of how to make the protein to make it be able to fight off the virus, it doesn't need the mRNA anymore and it'll be discarded. So it's not a harmful thing. The reason why these companies have gone with this mRNA option is it allows them to pivot and change things, and which is going to be important as variants come up. And it also eliminates the potential for people getting the infection because there's no piece of the actual virus that you're getting. You're just getting the blueprint for one of the proteins for how that virus enters the cell. So you get your body to be able to generate protective antibodies without ever being exposed to the actual virus. And I think the other common question people will ask is, and this is when we don't have a good answer on, is how long will this immunity last? That part, it remains to be seen. We're continuing to follow with research studies all the groups that received those initial vaccinations and seeing how long their immunity will last. A question for individuals with transplants or on immunosuppression has been, are they going to be able to generate as much antibodies? We're not sure yet. That's something we have to continue to follow, and if that protective response will last as long.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thavaraja. That was so much good information for our patients, and I'm really happy that you're here to share that with us. And I hope that everyone listening is paying close attention to the great information that she shared about safety and what we know so far. So we are lucky to be joined today by a couple of people who are living with kidney disease. And Carrie, you told me earlier that you actually have received a COVID-19 vaccine. Can you share with us a little bit about what factors contributed to you choosing to get the vaccine right now?
Certainly, yes. I received my first dose 2 weeks ago, and happy to report no side effects, just a little bit of arm soreness, so no big deal. I think it goes without saying that we're all really looking forward to the end of pandemic. We're looking forward to a return to some sense of normalcy in our lives and getting back to the things that we're used to. So this vaccine being rolled out felt like a really big step in the right direction toward that. So that was like my first really thing that I was excited about when I heard about the vaccine. Additionally, I was part of a clinical trial for a drug that I'm really fortunate to now be on, now that the FDA has approved it. But I was a part of that clinical trial. And so through that process, really developed a respect and just admiration for people that are in medical science, for the length of time and for the talent and just everything that goes into creating a new treatment for anything. So I trust medical science, and that just gave me the confidence to step forward and ask to take the vaccine.
Much for that information, Carrie. And now, Curtis, you have not yet gotten the vaccine, but you shared that you're interested in getting it. Can you tell us a little bit about why you're feeling that way and you're excited to get the vaccine?
Well, to be truthful, I was leery at first because of the it being kind of rushed through and not being tested, and being a transplant recipient with a compromised immune system, you're wanting to keep that kidney, but yet going through and getting COVID, there was a big weight, I guess you would have to say, weighing which one was better. So after consulting with both my general physician and my transplant team, of which I had appointments with them at the start of the year during my regular checkups, they both recommended that I go ahead and get the vaccination. So it was kind of a thing that was put to me by both my nephrologist and my general physician, is it's better to get the vaccine than to get COVID. So I had a good support team throughout all of this. Besides my family, like I said, I've had my nephrologist, my surgeon who actually did the surgery for my transplant, my general physician, my dialysis, or not my dialysis, but my transplant nurse. And that whole team has just been real nice in getting me information, and also looking at things like the NKF website to read up on stuff. So I'm ready to step forward and get it. Actually, I'm scheduled for to get the vaccine now in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited about it. And also to kind of be a trailblazer for those who haven't gotten it yet and are a little leery about it, and especially in communities of color where I know there's a big issue about getting the vaccine. So hopefully I can help lead in that direction also.
I'm so glad that you consulted with so many good experts in helping to form that decision. And Carrie, you too, it sounds like you guys were both very thoughtful and came to a good, well-informed conclusion. And now, currently, there's still pretty limited availability of the vaccines. Curtis, I'm so glad to hear that you're scheduled, and Carrie, I'm thrilled that you've been able to get the vaccine. But we know that a lot of kidney patients have not been able to get it yet. And eligibility criteria is different in each state. Carrie, could you talk a little bit about how you found out that you were eligible and how you navigated getting an appointment? Any tips that you can share for our viewers on how they can get informed about when they can get their vaccine?
Sure. So I was just watching the news and keeping current on the NKF information that was being put out, because I trust, the information NKF puts out. So I was able to just watch my state's phase rollout site. They started out doing it county by county, but then moved to a statewide information system. So I just, living in Pennsylvania, I've been following their website, looking at their phases, and thankfully they do kind of spell out very clearly what phase you fit into if you have a chronic condition. So in Pennsylvania, chronic kidney disease qualifies you for the first phase of the vaccine. And from there, it was not terribly difficult to find a provider that had appointments available. Now, I booked my appointment 3 weeks out, so it wasn't something I could just sign up for and go get that same day. I hope that day is coming for the rest of the population, but right now there is a bit of a wait.
Thanks, Carrie. That's helpful information. I know it can be confusing to figure out all of the different criteria, so that's great. And Curtis, you mentioned that you have been staying connected with your healthcare professionals to kind of navigate availability. Do you have any other tips to add or anything you've done that Carrie didn't mention?
Similar to Carrie and what's going on here in Indiana, the Indiana Department of Health has a specific webpage that they have dedicated to that people can go check daily to see about when the groupings are done. Actually here for the stages, they're going by age group. So, and they're also sending out daily memos. And I'm kind of fortunate in that I work for the state Department of Health. And so we get the memos right before they actually send them public. So when the mention came out that my age group was ready, I was just fortunate to be right there on my computer and go through the stages there of getting signed up. So it's been pretty good, and it's now good to hear that the governor and the commissioner here have opened up this particular group and the next group to transplant patients and dialysis patients. So they're starting to lift some of the restrictions and get more people with chronic diseases in these groups.
Yeah, it's really exciting news, and I'm so excited for more patients to be eligible to get the vaccine soon. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to get to our audience questions, so I'm gonna turn it over to some of our Facebook audience. And now one question that I've seen come from a couple of people, and this one's for Dr. Thavaraja. There's been a lot in the news about a potential new vaccine that's coming from Johnson & Johnson, and that we might hear news about it today or tomorrow or very soon if it's approved. Can you talk a little bit about that vaccine, how it's different from the ones already available, and whether it's safe for use in kidney patients?
So the Johnson & Johnson's vaccine has a few differences between the other two that are currently available. This one is not an mRNA vaccine. This is using an adenovirus as the delivery system. Adenovirus is harmless. It's a harmless virus. It is just a carrier agent. And it's focusing on that same protein, getting your body to make antibodies to that same protein, this spike protein, which helps the virus enter cells by building up immunity that way. Now, the key difference is this is going to be a single injection. Now, it doesn't have the degree of efficacy of 90-some%, but there is the possibility down the line that there may be a booster injection. But right now, the approval process is going through for a single injection. And we want to reiterate to people that any vaccine is going to be helpful in this cause. And so for people not to be worried that are they getting Pfizer, are they getting Moderna, are they going to get the Johnson & Johnson one? All of them are going to provide that level of protection to prevent that serious infection, to hopefully prevent any hospitalizations and the serious complications. You know, we're not expecting any of these vaccines to be 100% guarantee that you will not get the infection, but they're going to be a significant help across the board. And the more people we can get vaccinated, that's how we really will slow down the spread of this virus. Now, this one, it doesn't require the intense storage things that the Pfizer the vaccine did. So there's going to be a little more ability to perhaps use this in pharmacies, community health centers, things along that line.
So what I'm hearing is if it's approved, it's just it's a good option for people, and you shouldn't wait for one vaccine over the other. You should basically raise your hand for whichever one they're giving out. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Another question that is coming through that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. So people who maybe have had COVID-19 before and, either they know they had it, they got diagnosed, or they found out that they have antibodies. Do they still need to get vaccinated? Should they wait? Kind of what's your recommendation for those patients?
The recommendations that are coming out are for everyone to get vaccinated, even if they've had the COVID-19 infection that was formally diagnosed, because we really don't know how long those antibodies, those natural antibodies that you develop after having an infection, are actually going to last you. And there's a big concern that those are going to drop off after a certain period of time, and you're not going to have that level of protection anymore. Because we have seen cases of people get maybe a reinfection or a second round of it. So we are recommending that to get the maximal response from the vaccine, that after someone has had the COVID-19 infection, that they wait at least a month or so after, when their natural immunity would be declining, to get their booster shot. Now, if they are treated with the monoclonal antibody cocktail because of the severity of the infection that they had, then it might be 90 days. I also want to bring up the point, because this has come up with individuals who have certain types of kidney disease that may have had to be treated with certain medications like rituximab or things along that line. You're going to need to wait a certain amount of time after that infusion, and you really need to speak with your doctor. It's not because that infusion is going to react with the vaccine. It's just that infusion is designed to suppress your immune system. We want your immune system to react and generate antibodies. So we want to make sure you get the best response and get the most protective antibodies from this.
That makes perfect sense. Another question that came through that I think a number of people might be feeling or having a similar question. So there's been some stuff in the media around vaccines not working as well with people who have, autoimmune conditions. If your kidney disease was caused by an autoimmune condition, for example, lupus, should they still get the vaccine? Are there any concerns for certain kidney patients around the vaccine?
They should still get the vaccine. It might be a timing depending on the type of treatment that they may have just recently received. But it may be an issue where they may not develop as high of a level of antibodies in response to a vaccine, but it doesn't mean that some percentage of antibodies is not going to be helpful from that standpoint. And so we feel most of the societies, most of the recommendations have been that there's probably much more benefit from getting the vaccine versus not.
That's great. A couple people are asking for some clarification on the study that you referenced early on about the 189 transplant patients that have gotten the vaccine so far. Can you just reiterate the data or what we've learned from the patients, the transplant recipient patients who have already gotten the vaccine?
So there's a active study in process with the goal of recruiting 3,000 solid organ transplant individuals. And they're not providing the vaccine as part of this study, but they are following these individuals in terms of what types of symptoms they would have after the vaccine. Do they have an allergic reaction? Do they have any rejection episodes? Because that was one of the concerns with the vaccine. And what level of antibodies will they have? So they'll be sort of following their course as they get the vaccine. So far, they have 189 that the initial report literally came out about a week ago, that they submitted an abstract. It hasn't hit formal publication, but it's online. And they've talked about individuals who received vaccines from the period of December through January. These may have been healthcare workers. These may have been other individuals who also happen to have solid organ transplants. And they did not have any cases of rejection. They did not have higher rates of allergic reactions versus the general population. And most of the side effects are the typical ones that we're hearing from people who have received the vaccine: soreness at the arm site, maybe some muscle aches, maybe a low-grade fever, those types of things. But it is very preliminary data. The goal is many transplant centers are reaching out to their transplant recipients, asking them to join this registry so that we can get some further information.
That's great. Yeah. And hopefully more patients will continue to be willing to share their information so we can continue to learn more and have better data around this. Another question that's coming up is about people who are maybe on the kidney transplant list, but haven't received a kidney yet. Questions about if they should get the vaccine, when they should get the vaccine. How does that affect, people who are potentially getting a transplant soon or are on the transplant wait list?
So right now, most transplant centers are saying to move forward with getting a vaccine. The timing of a vaccination immediately post-transplantation is probably going to need to be delayed, because you are, at the time of the surgery, you're going to be receiving some high-dose immunosuppression. You're probably not going to be able to mount an immune response. That's typically our recommendation for other vaccinations as well. So we try to get them done, if possible, beforehand. So if there's an opportunity to get that, to move forward with that.
That's great to know. And then after, just talk with your doctor about what that timing looks like, depending on the individual.
Yeah, and I mean, while these are all general recommendations, it might be that your healthcare team says, you know what, why don't we do this instead? And so I think that's a good starting point to have that dialogue with them. Yeah,
that's helpful. So Curtis and Carrie, I know a lot of people, looking at these comments, there's definitely a lot of people who still have concerns or fears about getting the vaccine, just uncertainty around it. What is maybe one or two pieces of advice that you would offer to someone who is a kidney patient that is maybe a little bit nervous about getting the vaccine? Maybe we'll start with whoever wants to start.
Well, I'm a strong advocate for speaking up and being willing to have an open conversation with your doctor about anything. That's what they're there for. They've heard it all, so it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to challenge them. You have to be your own best advocate in life and in your journey as a kidney or person with any sort of health challenge. So ask them questions, tell them what your concerns are, let them connect what they know about the vaccine to what they know about what's going on inside your body. And then just make your best decision from there. Lean on other people, that have gone through it. Trust your circle of, of friends and family. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I agree with basically what Carrie said. Talk to your physician or physicians first and see what they say. And then do your own research on what's been going on and stuff. There are a lot of good informational sites that are out there, and you got to trust yourself and kind of just go for it. So, and again, like my physician told me, it's probably better to get the vaccination than not to get the vaccination.
That's great. Thank you guys both for sharing that. Another question that came up in from Facebook for Dr. Thavaraja is around dialysis patients. This person is a dialysis patient and they're wondering about getting the vaccine, right before dialysis or during dialysis, and if dialysis might, clean out the vaccine or make it less effective. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The actual dialysis procedure won't impair your ability to generate an immune response, generate antibodies. So we don't have an issue with that. And we actually, a lot of nephrologists have been advocating for the CDC to allow us, and a lot of our local health departments to allow us to administer the vaccines in the dialysis unit, because when somebody's going to die, they're already there for a long period of time. To have them have to have another appointment to go get their vaccination is a little bit challenging. Plus, they're already there, individuals who are there for their dialysis treatment are there at least, 3 hours. So there's that 30-minute monitoring sort of built in there. And so from a dialysis standpoint, there are other vaccines that we already give in the dialysis unit for hepatitis B, the flu vaccine, the different pneumonia vaccines, and those are all not affected by the dialysis treatment. So that's not an issue that we are concerned with.
That's good to know. Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. And if dialysis providers, I know in some places, can give the vaccine, that seems like an efficient way to do it. Cross two things off your checklist at once: get dialysis and get vaccinated. Another question, and I know, Dr. Thavaraja, you've kind of touched on this, but how do specific immunosuppressants impact the efficacy of the vaccine? So someone on immunosuppressants, can they still get vaccinated? Are there any immunosuppressants where you maybe shouldn't get vaccinated if you're taking specific ones?
So in general, there have not been any recommendations to cut back on your immunosuppression, stop your immunosuppression in order to get the vaccination, because that's not the route we go for our other vaccinations for like the flu or the pneumonia vaccine. In terms of the more specialized ones where you might be getting those every 6 months or so, there might be some timing in that, in terms of how far you would wait after a dose of a certain medication before you would get your vaccine. But your maintenance medications, and we have a lot of individuals who have kidney issues due to autoimmune disorders or related to having immunosuppression for a transplant, that we don't ask them to do any adjustment with their immunosuppression to take the vaccinations.
Great, that's very helpful. And one more question regarding the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and if you can just clarify. So this person is asking if it's what we call a live vaccine, and if they, if there are concerns about it because of that.
No, none of the vaccines for this are live vaccines, and they all do not contain they don't contain any portion of a deactivated, so there's not a chance of getting the infection from any of these vaccines. What they do contain is the material that your body will learn how to react to the protein that the virus uses to enter cells. And by reacting to that, then you can go ahead, you build up immunity against the virus.
Okay, thank you. That's good clarification. I know it can be really hard to sift through all that information in the media and know what's happening. So that's really helpful. I am just scanning our questions to see if we have any more coming through. How about, okay, this is a great question. So, what do we know about how much the vaccine can prevent you from transmitting the virus? Like, once I get vaccinated, can I safely go, socialize with my unvaccinated family members and not have any risks to that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
There's not a lot of data on that yet. And that's part of this longer term kind of follow-up to see, does it cut down on transmission? There is some potential that there may be some reduction in the ability to transmit the virus, but right now the recommendations are still, if you are interacting with someone who's unvaccinated, to continue to wear your mask, not as much for protecting yourself, but more for protecting them because they don't have that protective antibody yet.
That makes sense. That's helpful to know. I know we're all so ready to get back to normal, like Carrie said earlier, but it's good to know that we have to continue to be safe until more people are vaccinated. How about people who have maybe certain allergies to certain medications, like someone who's allergic to penicillin? Is that a contraindication to getting the vaccine?
No, these are not. So I think in the early descriptions, when they said individuals could have more severe allergic reactions, I think it kind of got a little bit of a broad brush to it. We are concerned about individuals who may have had reactions to other types of vaccines because a lot of the carrier agents, a lot of the preservative agents might be similar. And on the NKF website, the different ingredients for each of the vaccines is listed on there. So if you've been told you have an allergy to a specific agent or preservative, that you would be able to sort that out. If there's any concerns, really discussing that with your healthcare providers. But if somebody has allergies to a medication, if somebody has allergies to food allergies or anything like that, these are not contraindications to moving forward. And if somebody has had an allergy, it's more of something that we potentially would alert the staff in terms of who's doing the vaccination, and that's part of the monitoring process that's been built into the system. So it's really that group who's had significant allergies to other vaccinations that we're on high alert for. But if you do have any concerns, your healthcare team knows your history. They've been, worked with you with different medications, and they'll be able to caution you as to whether or not this is something to it.
Thank you. That's helpful. One person is asking about, and this is back to that Johns Hopkins study about the fact that there have not been many people of color represented in some of this research. Can you speak to that a little bit? Is there any data specifically around communities of color and how the vaccine is working or how we're vaccinating in that community?
So two different, so that's kind of two different ones. I think some of it was within ability to recruit in different communities when they were recruiting for the vaccine trials. And then I think some of it has been sort of as different states have sort of rolled out their different plans and how they're getting to different communities. One of the things that has been raised is how we go about advertising the information about eligibility for vaccines and how do you go about signing up for it. A lot of individuals don't have access to a computer, don't have access to email, don't have those types of things. And so, we need to have all of these additional plans developed by our health departments and our communities to figure out how to reach that group, so that it's not that they're being, those individuals are being bypassed on when they're eligible for a vaccine. A lot of institutions are using their electronic portal to notify patients under their care that they're eligible for a vaccine. If you don't have that access, how do we get to them? And so a lot of different states are taking on different plans where they're going into senior living facilities, where they're going into adult, senior apartments, or they're trying to reach out and partner up with community health centers. Or I've heard of one dialysis unit, which they actually spent a portion of their time getting everybody signed up because they knew they weren't going to get the vaccine anytime soon in the unit. So they actually went person to person and literally went through all the different websites to help people sign up for that. So that's one of the big challenges to us as a healthcare community, figuring out how we make sure that everyone is getting that information and how we're getting that access to it. I think there's also a component of potential distrust of the vaccine, discomfort. I think a lot of myths are still floating around. There have been certain myths about potentially that the vaccines will cause sterilization. There have been myths about that they've been rushed to production and they're not safe. And so for a lot of us as healthcare providers, we're trying to talk a little bit more about the development of the vaccine, the safety of it, the fact that that corners were not cut on checking if something's safe and ready to use in the general population. But it's true, as we get more and more data, we'll have more and more information, but there are unfortunately a lot of myths that are getting circulated in certain groups, in certain portions of the country that are just not helping us.
Curtis, I saw you nodding your head during that. Have you been hearing things in your community, and how have you been navigating, talking to maybe people in your community that are less, family members or friends or people who are less interested maybe in getting the vaccine?
True, yes. And it's been the myths that were already previously said, and then people are going back even in time to, things like the Tuskegee study back then, when they were doing shots and stuff. So there's still a lot of distrust, in the community, with the medical community. And again, I would just say, do your own studies and see what's going on and consult with your own physician and see what they say before you kind of listen to what the streets are just saying.
That's great advice. Carrie, have you had to bust any myths with family members or friends? Any additional tips for building people's trust?
No myth busting, but I do think it's a personal choice. And we're kind of in a season right now where people are a little hesitant to talk about how they feel about these kinds of things. And I think that's why it's even more important to share what we're doing, share that we've gotten vaccinated, share that it's not a political thing, share that it's not a healthy or not healthy thing. It's for everyone. And I think stepping out as someone with a health challenge is me kind of showing, hey, it's safe for me. I can do it. So can you.
That's great advice. Thank you both Carrie and Curtis for being willing to share your perspectives and your story here. And we are coming up on the last of our time. So Dr. Thavaraja, just to close things out, well, actually, I'll open this up to any of our panelists. Are there any additional comments you'd like to share about the vaccine or thoughts before we close?
I would only kind of say that just those few things about there are 2 current vaccines that are approved. We hopefully will get a third one. And down the line, we're hoping we'll get another one after that. And not to be worried about which vaccine that you're getting in particular, if it's not an issue of being allergic to a specific ingredient. And that while these vaccines have been developed more rapidly than other vaccinations in the past, it's not by cutting corners in terms of the safety aspects. And to really have an open dialogue with your healthcare providers. They're there to help you out and to figure out what's best for you.
Any other final thoughts to my lovely guests?
I would just say, just real quick, for people who are leery, look at what's going on with those who have been vaccinated with either the first shot and or both the second shot. Percentages are really, really high, and that there's been no really big side effects happening with the population in general. So it looks like things are going in the direction that they should be going as far as getting the vaccine.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you giving up time during your day to talk with us. I know our audience really enjoyed it. And to everyone watching, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being diligent and trying to take in new information and learn as much as you can about this vaccine. We have a lot of great resources on our NKF website at kidney.org, including lots of information about the vaccine. So keep doing your research, keep talking to your healthcare professionals, and thanks for joining us.